Hi, and welcome back to Cooking Brazil. I'm Robert, and welcome once again to my kitchen. Today, as promised, I will be creating Brazilian feijão, or black beans, for you. I'll show you how to do this, everything you need, some techniques, some information that will help make it easier for the beginners in our crowd here. Before we get on to that, when I made my video a couple of days ago, I was showing you around my kitchen and some of the things that I use and talking about the importance of cleanliness and sanitation in your kitchen. One thing I forgot to show you was this little gem right here. This was the luckiest thing I found since I've been buying cooking stuff here, and it's a cutting board. It's a high density polyethylene or HDPE cutting board. Very top end, very professional. I found it where I buy a lot of my cooking stuff. It was the only one they've had. I have not seen one since. Something like this, essential for your kitchen. The best you can buy, the biggest you can buy. It's just convenient and it's very easy to maintain and keep sanitary. I'm in the habit of cleaning things once in a while with bleach and water. It just kills any random bacteria or anything that might be kind of hanging out on some of your equipment, especially cutting boards. The difference between this and the ones you see in the stores, the softer plastic material that you see a lot here in these stores is just, I'm sorry, it's crap quality, and it's just not made for this kind of work. They're very difficult to clean and maintain. They stain very easily, and that translates into bacteria saturating that board. Wood, same problem with wood. Wood is not made for everything. Even high quality wood cutting boards, they get saturated a little bit, and it's extremely difficult, if not impossible, to clean all that out of there, even with bleach. Some of it soaks into the wood and it stays there and builds up over a period of time. High density polyethylene, easy to clean. When you feel the surface after you've used it, you can feel it's a little rough. That's from your knife, of course, that's going to happen, but it doesn't penetrate very deeply. It's micro compared to a cheap plastic board. And again, if you take it every now and then, put it in a sink or in someplace safe, and just pour a little bleach down the face of it, make sure it covers everything, let it set for an hour. Go back later, rinse it thoroughly with hot water, and then wash it thoroughly with soap and water, and then give it another rinse and let it drain and dry. And you should enjoy it for years to come. They last a long time. High density polyethylene for Americans, your white plastic milk jugs at home, same material. They take and they recycle it, and it's thermally processed and compressed into these boards. They're pricey. I think I paid about 80 reais for this little guy, but worth every penny. Worth every penny. I wouldn't trade it for anything. Okay, so let's move along, and excuse me for a minute while I put this away. My film crew once again didn't show up to work, so I'm the cinematographer for the day. Let me pass that down a little bit. Bear with me, I am doing the best I can with this, okay? Now, you should have a pretty good view of that. And I'm going to sit here and we'll just go through all these items and I'll show you what we're doing. Also, when we were looking around my kitchen, I had a bowl, a big stainless steel bowl with this huge mass of bread dough that was rising, and I thought you might like to see what that was. That is Tuscan bread. Very simple bread, extremely low salt, only about a teaspoon of salt. That is the trademark of Tuscan bread. A couple of different ways to finish this when you bake it. You can put it in the oven plain, just as it is, on low heat. Keep it there for about 40 minutes, say around 220, 250 max centigrade or Celsius or whatever it is they use here. You want it to bake slowly because it needs to rise and kind of adapt. Some little knife slashes across the top created this little pattern. If you want a nice tender crust on it, a lot of moisture inside, you can take a pan of water and put it on the lower rack of your oven while it bakes, and it will make it very tender and very chewy, but it doesn't affect the flavor at all. If you don't want that and you just want a nice crispy brown crust on there, don't put the water in there and let it bake for the same time. But that's for another show, okay? I'll go set this down. Okay, now let's go through a few things here so you can understand exactly what we're doing. We're making Brazilian black beans, feijão. People eat this every day, you know, for lunch, for dinner, everything. Okay, and it's very common here. It's a main staple along with rice in their diet. And everywhere you go, every restaurant, you can buy beans and rice here. It's just that common. That's what they do. They're like potatoes for us. A couple of things going on here. Okay, the black beans, you'll find them in any supermarket in bags like this. This is a 1 liter, 1 kilogram bag of black beans. For our purposes here, this will make about 4 servings of the finished product of what we're doing. If you're just doing the beans plain without anything added in there, you could probably do as much as 500 kilograms, or excuse me, 500 grams. I have to get used to the weights and measures here a little bit, so bear with me. 500 grams of this, a half a kilogram, will make a pretty fair-sized pot of beans. We're only going to be using 250 grams measured. I measure it because it's important to be accurate with this because of the capacity of my cooker. It's a 7-liter cooker, it's very large. And some people say, well, it's only 250 grams of beans and a liter of water. Yeah, but we're adding a bunch of things to it, and that's going to change the face of. Here, they typically eat it as is with a lot of liquid in it, very thin, very watery, and they pour it over their rice or their food or however they do it. You might see a little bit of this. This is calabresa. It's a Portuguese type sausage that they make here. It's actually very good. It's a cured sausage, very aromatic and very tasty. I enjoy this a lot. I like this a lot. So again, 250 grams of beans measured. All right, 1 liter of water. If you have a smaller pressure cooker, all you do is scale that down. But for all intents and purposes, this proportion is law. All right, 250 grams beans, 1 liter of water. If you reduce it, half everything, exactly the same. And try to be very careful with your measures, all right? It's very important for the capacity of the pot. You don't want an explosion in your kitchen. It will happen, okay? Or else, if you put too much liquid in there, it'll start bubbling out the top and go everywhere. I've had that happen. That's why I have this. Before I had a 5-liter. Caused me a lot of trouble all the time. So here we are. Okay, so you've got your beans, you've got your water, you've got, this is about 2 pieces of linguiça calabresa. They're about this long. You see them in the stores everywhere around here. They're very, very common. And you can slice them up in about 1/4-inch thick slices, and you can half those or quarter those, however you prefer it in the pot. I like them about half. It gives you a nice big piece of something. I'm American. We like chunks of meat, and we like to chew, and we like to taste it, and we like to see it. Onions, I have here 2 white onions, medium size, not too small, definitely not too big, diced up. Okay, I have a technique for doing that that's very quick and clean. 2 things that'll help you when dicing onions, if you don't want to cry too awful much, is the hairy end of the onion, don't cut it off, cut the stem end. The second one is you can put those guys in the freezer for about a half an hour, get them icy cold, and that reduces some of it. It'll never go away altogether, but it is reduced quite a bit. And don't make the same mistake that I did at thinking that your food processor is a wonderful idea for mulching up your onions. I had to leave my kitchen. it just exploded in my kitchen, and it was just horrible. So you can't get around the work with onions. You just have to do it and kind of suck it up. Important to flavor. So I know a lot of people don't like onions. My wife particularly can't stand the taste of an onion or the sight of an onion in food, but she accepts the fact that it's necessary for flavor. Without the onion, what do you have? You have nothing. You need the onion. Plus, when you're cooking, if you chop it up small enough, and as you cook, the longer you cook, the more it reduces and just kind of blends into the food that you're cooking. In a pressure cooker, it is totally saturated with all the bean juice and the seasonings and the garlic and the oil, so you don't even know basically that it's in there. You can barely detect it at all unless you're really looking for it. Another tip with your beans: clean them. All right, rinse them off real good and sift through them. I found small stones, little tiny dirt clods, and other foreign items in my beans before, and you don't want that in your food. Bite into a little pebble, you're going to the dentist, all right? So be careful with that. The water is absolutely filtered water. I try to use filtered water as much as possible. I have a filter here in my kitchen that pours it out at a pretty good rate. Oil, you want a neutral oil, and your choices are very simple here where I am. It's either olive oil, soy oil, or some kind of salad oil I haven't even been able to identify. Unfortunately here where I am, I don't know if this is true all over the place in São Paulo or even other parts of Rio right now. It's all that's really available to cook with, but it's good because it's a healthy choice, and it's a very neutral flavored oil. It won't affect the flavor of the food that much. You won't notice it so much. My pan, this is a large Teflon lined skillet that I have to cook up large quantities of food. There's a very, very good reason why I use this when I cook the beans. What seems like a small amount in this pressure cooker, when you put it in there, this is part of my technique. I don't cook the whole thing the whole time in the pressure cooker. It will come out, go into the pan. That's where you add all the seasoning and everything. The seasoning, very, very simple. Salt. Okay, let's talk about salt for a minute. Most good cooks, and definitely chefs, especially trained and experienced chefs, know the benefits of using the proper salt. Kosher salt. Kosher salt. I haven't seen it here in Brazil, so I researched to find out what I could do about that. And it turns out that it's simply a coarse salt that's been blessed by a rabbi. That's why it's kosher. But the idea here is it's a very coarse salt. How do you get this? Let me just move this up to the camera so you can kind of see this, and I'll explain the reasons. You can see it's a very coarse salt. It's not the superfine iodized salt that we use out of the box, because for cooking, you know, we're not sprinkling this on our food after. We're adding this into the mix and cooking it along with everything else. The reason this is so much better is you can control the amount that you let out into your food as you're working it. You know, so it's much easier to control the flow of the salt going into the pan out of your fingers. If you take some of this and then some of the regular salt and you experiment with it, you can't control that little tiny superfine grain of salt very well, and it's very easy to over salt. Another thing about this is it's very coarse, so it actually takes more of this to salt your food. You're not adding more salt necessarily. You're adding more salt, but you're not really adding that much, not like you would think. Because it's very coarse, it takes up some more space for the same amount of the fine salt. So as you're adding, you say, boy, I added a lot. Then you taste it and you're going, well, it's really not that salty. I'm going to need some more. So it takes more of this quantity-wise, added into your dish, into your cooking to bring the flavor out than it does that fine grain processed salt. It's a better choice. I make my own. I take churrasco salt, which is what everybody rubs their meat with here before they throw it on their grill or churrasco. But I take this in my spice grinder and just give her a few spins, man, and there you go. You've got coarse grade, kosher style salt. Okay, actual kosher salt is made from a different type of salt altogether, but this functions very well for our purposes here. In Brazil, you have to compromise. You have to learn how to do things a little differently because things aren't always available. So you have to find out how to make them for yourselves or to do them for yourselves. Black pepper, I take black peppercorns and I grind my own coarse grind in my spice grinder, and it serves me well. One thing about black pepper and Brazilians, they're not spice people at all, okay? And most of them don't like even a little bit of this stuff in their food. I do it anyway. Hey, my food is good. Eat it. Be quiet. Okay? But again, it's one of those things that's just, it's necessary. You know, the thing with a lot of Brazilian food is it tends to be a little bland. And I express, okay, I'm sorry, we had a little technical issue with some settings on the camera. Again, this is a learning experience for me, and I'm kind of figuring some things out as I go along. Excuse me one second. Couple of things that got missed. I didn't realize it had actually shut off. The garlic. Minced garlic, for large quantities, just buy it at the stores and the supermarkets around here. They all carry the tubs, large and small, of minced garlic. Olio picado is what I use, and it's doesn't have too much moisture in it, you know, and it's very good quality. Man, there are no additives. The other thing is cumin. I do use cumin in these beans in this recipe. It just brings out the flavor. It adds a little something to it. The first time I put it in there, people kind of were, you know, they looked at me, and cominho is Portuguese for cumin, and they were like, cominho, and I said, yeah, of course, and then they're like, it's good. So it was a good thing to try. Try things. Never be afraid to experiment. The worst you can do is fail and have to start over again, okay? So those things will go in there. These seasonings, like the salt and pepper, are to taste. You have to try a little sample, You've got a bunch of sample spoons. Don't dip them twice, okay? Change them or wash them in between samplings. The other thing that's really important is this little guy right here. This is smoked bacon. It's one of my favorite things here to use. I love using this in cooking. It's easy to use too much, so you got to be kind of careful, but it makes a nice accent and produces a nice smoky flavor to your food. The other thing I forgot was it was kind of an error of omission on my part. Was the amount of water. For 250 grams of beans, put in 2 liters of water. I'm not sure if I said that before. I'll check that in my edit later. Otherwise, if it's just 1 liter, it runs out very, very quickly. It takes about 2 liters to really cook this down right. But again, I will double check and let you know where I made that error, because I thought I put in 2 liters in my pot and it burned up in like 15 minutes, so I had to add some more. So there's another liter. So for 40 minutes of cooking, that's what you need. I believe is about 2 liters, but I will double check again. The bacon, delicious stuff. Is it good for you? This isn't a good for you cooking show. It's how to cook delicious food. Okay. So out of this chunk, you can see it's about a hand-sized piece of smoked bacon. You're maybe going to want, for this amount, maybe a third of this in your mix. You can see the skin portion. You want to get rid of the skin. Just fillet that stuff right off of there, how I do it. The outer dried portions from the curing, Just chop a little bit of that off. This isn't bacon like you have bacon and eggs at home. This is smoked bacon for cooking. It's just delicious. I just love this stuff, man. So you wanna cube it, small cubes, about the same as you would dice your onions. Again, a sharp knife, indispensable for cutting things like this. You know, it just a dull knife is a dangerous thing because you try hard and you slip, and the next thing you know, you're off to the doctor for stitches. So be cautious and keep your blade sharp. All right. And this will cook down and add to the flavor. You can hear the pot restarting in the back there. Your timing for your pressure cooker is from the time it starts doing that, that's when you start counting, okay? Don't turn it on and count from there because it might take a few minutes, and sometimes that's very critical. We'll just finish doing this as quickly as possible here till it's on, and then I'll be back as soon as we're ready to put all the beans in the pan, okay? So that's pretty much the look at it. I will finish this. We're going to stop for now, and as soon as the beans are ready to come out and go into the pan for all the extras, I'll be back, okay? Thank you for coming again. I apologize for the errors. We'll improve things as we go along, okay? Talk to you shortly. Okay, continuing right along, let's start setting up our little system here. There's the pot. There's the lid. You can see it has a rubber grommet on there that helps seal the top, so you're not blasting liquid out the top of this thing as it expands. Here we'll add our beans. And our liter of water. And that is pretty much it. Insert the lid. Get her seated up there right. Insert the lid. Turn the fire on high. Let it set 40 minutes at least, and then we'll take it out and start phase 2. I'll see you in a little while. Okay, we're back, and hopefully we've got all our issues sorted out here so we can carry on with our cooking. The sooner it's cooked, the sooner we can eat. Okay, I've already let the pressure off of this pot, and the nice thing with these is with this top vent, you can take a fork, stick it back under there. Even though it wasn't making noise, there's still a lot of pressure in that pot, and it takes a bit. If you let it just go naturally, it can take quite a while for a large pot to vent out all that steam and all that pressure. So you put a fork under here, let it work for a while, and eventually the pressure will be relieved enough for you to be able to take this lid off of here. Don't be fooled though. If you go to remove the lid and it's stuck tight, well, it's because there's still quite a bit of pressure in there. It can fool you. And you might get burned. It could splash out of there if it pops and then burn you, and kitchen burns are too common and very uncomfortable. There's a little red safety release under here also. You can kind of push that down, and if nothing comes out, you know you're pretty much ready to start working here, okay? So I'm going to release this. Boom, see how easily that came out of there? That means she's ready to go. And what we have on the inside here, let me turn this around to where I can see what I'm doing. What we have on the inside here, there's still some liquid. The reality of this large pot is it needs about 3 liters of water for 250 grams of this stuff. It's a much bigger pot. so there's much more space for everything to expand, and it does it very quickly and will burn it up. So if you're using a large 7-liter pot, you need a minimum of 3 liters of water for 40 minutes of cook time. I actually went 4 liters. I did 2 in the beginning and 2 towards the end. Small pots, they don't expand so much, they don't burn up as much water. So you can probably, with a 250 gram quantity, you can probably start with 2, halfway through the process, shut it down, vent the steam and the pressure, and take a look and add another liter of water. You want it to be a little juicy when you throw it in the skillet, okay? So we have this. I'm gonna reach down in here with my special tool, make sure nothing's stuck on the bottom, okay? Move that off to the side. And we're going to bring over the big tool. Okay, I'm going to put this to the side for a while because we need to do some work here before we're ready to throw the beans in. Okay, the next step we're going to go on to is we're going to start preparing our base before we put the beans in. Okay, and what that's comprised of is our oil, our soy oil, and our onions to begin with. Alright, those are your first 2 things that are going to go in the pot. And you're going to put some oil in here. A big skillet like this takes a little bit to cover the bottom, but you want to get it nice and wet. Alright, so the onions don't burn on the skillet. Okay, just kind of pour it in, roll it around, see if it covers. Boom. Alright, one of the techniques for doing this, right, as you're working, I use this when I do my pasta sauces a lot. So you want to heat the onion and the oil at the same time, so it doesn't just scorch the onion and everything kind of comes together at the same time. I love this part of it. Between the onions and the oil and then the garlic going in, the smell in the house is incredible. I don't know how anybody could even think about cooking anything like this without using onion in it. Garlic is one thing, onion quite another. Man, without the onion, the base for your flavor doesn't exist. So we get that just kind of spread around the bottom of the pan. That's why I have that extra handle there. All right. Turn her on high. Nice to have a big stove for this. Turn her on high and let the onions and the oil heat together. This is the good part. So give it a couple of minutes here, and once it heats up, once you see it really going, you want to kind of cut your heat back because you don't want to start burning around the edges too much, okay? You need to control the heat, but again, it's a learning thing. A lot of these techniques are just things you learn over doing different recipes and trying different things. Mistakes happen. I made a mistake with the water. You might make a mistake with something else. Don't worry about it. It happens. There's not a cook alive that doesn't screw up a meal every now and then, you know. It's kind of a bummer when you come home and you're making dinner and you're all ready for something and you scoop it out on the plate and you find out you put too much salt and it's inedible, and well, what do you do now, huh? It happens. So, okay, we're starting to sizzle just a little bit. I don't know how much of this you can hear. I'm sorry you can't smell it. We don't have smell-o-vision yet. Hope somebody invents that soon, because I love to share this smell with people. The smell of onions cooking in oil and then the garlic going in. Oh yeah. One of the many side benefits of cooking for yourself. Okay, you can see we're starting to bubble up here a little bit. I'll zoom this in a little closer so you can get a real good look at what's going on here. There we go. That's a pretty good view, I think. All right, the onions are going. The nice thing about this skillet, it's a real heavy bottom skillet, so it doesn't heat up too fast, and the heat is dispersed over the whole pan. There aren't any real hot spots, and I don't have too many issues. Well, the learning continues. We had a little issue here with the size of the chip in my camera not being big enough to hold so much video, so I had to delete it. All that you've really missed is the addition of the garlic and the bacon. We're gonna, once the onions are translucent, we put those in there. The garlic, as much as you saw, probably about 3 to 4 tablespoons, maybe less for this size of a pot. And the bacon, all you saw me cut off, it all goes in there. And it's pretty much ready to go. So we've got a lot of flavor going on in here. You see a little brown coming up off the bacon and the garlic, and that tells us that we're ready to add our beans. So we're going to take our pot of beans here, and as you can see what's in the pot here, a lot of liquid, a lot of beans. We want that all to go in our skillet. Now, some people that use this particular method say, well, you only put half the beans in there. I say, no, put all the beans in there. I want them all to be fried with everything else to absorb as much of that flavor as you can before you throw it back in the pot into the pressure cooker to recook it. Because this is only step 2 of the process. We're adding all the meat and seasoning. We're going to cook this up for a little while back in the pressure cooker, and then we'll go again. With the beans in there, you've got everything back on high because you want to bring this stuff back to a bit of a boil. Go ahead and drop your sausage in. Now, the sausage, it's just a small amount of beans, only 250 grams worth, and you don't want to overwhelm it with the sausage. So you're going to kind of eyeball it and see. It's going to reduce a lot once you put it back in the pressure cooker. The size of this piece that you see here, it's going to be about 2/3 that size by the time it's done. So maybe we just won't use all of the sausage, okay? We don't want to overwhelm the dish with it. So we'll put that in. And the smell is just absolutely incredible. I love smelling this. When you start the onions and the oil, for me, that's where it all begins. That's the basis for this whole thing. So you can just imagine a smoky flavor and scent from the garlic and the bacon frying in the onion and oil. You know, layers upon layers of flavor. The liquid and bean mix that you saw me dump in here, for most people, most Brazilians, the way they cook, that's where it stops. Some people will add the sausage in here and cook it all at one time in the pot. For me, that's a little bit of a faux pas. I don't like that method. It's too plain, and you know, it's not interesting. And I like my food to be interesting. I'm originally from San Francisco, California, and good food is just what you have there. So I try to impart that in my cooking here. I miss home. I miss the food quite a bit. You can see we're back on high heat, and it's bubbling away pretty good. You're not going to really cook everything too awful much. It's only maybe about 15 to 20 minute process right now to get it ready to go back in the pressure cooker. And what you're trying to do is bring all those flavors together before it goes back in the pressure cooker, or else it's not the same. If you put everything in ahead of time and just cook it down, I'm sorry, it doesn't work. You don't get the benefit of the fry and the blending of all these seasonings and flavor. I'm going to add a little salt on top of this. As you can see what I've got here, it's only about a teaspoon of this, and it seems like a lot, but for this kind of salt, it's really not. Okay, So just a couple of pinches of that. Let it go. Get it mixed up there a little bit. Unfortunately, you can't smell or get the sense of what's really going on in this pan. So the first time you do it for yourself, trust me, you will. You'll be so happy you learned to do this. Now here's our black pepper. Again, with the pepper, it's not a real popular seasoning here. People here kind of fear this. So you're going to be sparing with the black pepper, just a sprinkle over there, and that's about it. Just gives a little edge, a little bite, okay? The cumin, you can see how much I've got here. It's maybe 2 tablespoons full, and what I do is I just kind of lightly go over the top of my mix with this. You don't want to put too much or it'll just drown out all the other flavors. So for a quantity of beans this small, I would say maybe a couple of teaspoons. You don't want a full tablespoon. It's just too much, okay? So you've got that in. Give it a quick stir. And you see everything kind of boiling, bubbling together and kind of mixing those flavors. At this point, these beans are still a little hard. They're soft, but they're still very, very firm. By the time we're done, they're just going to be soft and mushy, but not falling apart, okay? And everything will take on a dark, chocolatey kind of color, and the flavor will just come together, and it's very intense and it's very good. Again, nobody really brings it to this point. People eat their beans just liquidy and thin, maybe with some of the sausage in there, and they, like I said, they put it in at the very beginning in the pressure cooker and they cook everything together at the same time, and it's just kind of beans with spongy sausage stuff in there, all right? The onions, they do use onions quite a bit, but they rough chop them, and too much. It's just too much. It never comes together quite right. So you can see how we're bubbling away here, and I'm gonna stop for a minute and let this go, and I'll come back in a few minutes as soon as we're ready to put it back in the pressure cooker, and we'll look at it some more, okay? See you in a few minutes. It's been a little while now. We've been up here for about 15 or 20 minutes, and you can see the water in our bean mix has been reduced quite a bit. The sausage is cooked to, it's absorbed a lot of the color, it's gotten much, much darker. And once again, the smell is just incredible here right now. I love the smell of this stuff cooking. In just a second here, we're going to put this back in the pressure cooker for a little while. And when you do put it back in the pressure cooker, looking at the way it is now, you kind of have to judge for yourself how much extra water to add. I will probably put in about 1 liter of water in the pressure cooker, because it's not going to cook very long, maybe 20-25 minutes, to kind of blend everything really well and get the beans and the sausage and everything a little bit softer than what it is now. When I cut a little bit ago, I turned the flame back down to a simmer and cooked it really slow. Once it's boiling, down to a simmer, and then you let it go for 15-20 minutes, and that's pretty much all I've done. So at this point, it's looking about exactly like it should at this point, and we're pretty much ready to put it back in the pressure cooker pot and add the water. So I'm going to turn the flame off. Bring the pressure cooker back over. Grab our handy little ladle here and start ladling our mixture back into the pressure cooker. It's tempting to eat this right now as the smell is so incredible, but it's not quite ready yet. So a little bit of patience. And that's the thing with cooking. One of the most important things you need to learn to do for yourself as well as your food is learn to be patient. okay? It's paramount. Why? Because it takes time to cook that food, all right? It's not an instantaneous process. You know, anything worth doing like this is worth waiting for, and the rewards are great. Just about get it all here in a minute, and we'll be ready to move on. So you can see the mix is really, really dry at this point. If you put the pressure cooker on it now, you will burn everything and it'll be ruined. So more water is key. You grab another spoon to get this last little bit out here with. You want to get all this brown, crusty stuff off the bottom of this skillet because it's just concentrated flavor. And as always, we wash our hands frequently when we touch our food, all right? One thing when you do it for yourself and it's just you. It's another thing when you're doing it for other people. It's not fair. Move this out of the way. Clean up our pot here a little bit. I made a little bit of a mess. Everything's still very hot, so be careful when you're working around these things. And just think of all the anticipation of what you're going to eat later, how good it's going to be, man. And as you can see, it doesn't really take a lot of time. It just takes patience and sampling and trying. I sampled for salt a little bit, and it was just about where you want it to be. This is something you have to do on your own, and you have to sample. Remember your sample spoon. Okay, put a little, try it, put a little, try it, put a little, try it, mix it real well in between each application. Now the only thing I've got left out here now is salt, because once we recook this, it's going to change the flavor somewhat again. And at the end of the process, that's when you want to really, really see what you need for salt. Nothing else to put in there, no pepper, no more cumin, no nothing, just the salt. Okay, so let me get a little water here. Okay, my little plastic measuring device holds 500 milliliters of water. So we're going to start with that and pour it in. Okay, see what we get. What we want to end up with is going to be like a thick stew in this. And believe me, that water is going to cook away very quickly. I'll let you see what we've got in here right now. You can see the amount of liquid we got in there. Well, that'll be gone in like 5 minutes and you'll start burning. So we're going to add another 500 milliliters. Give her a stir. And now, if you can see that very well at all, you see we have a lot more liquid in there. That is, part of this is because, the reason I'm adding so much extra water, it's taking so much, is because of the size of this pot. If you're using a smaller pot, it doesn't take as much water. In a large pot like this, when you're not to capacity, you know, you have a lot more room for the steam to develop and escape. Whereas with a smaller pot, there's not that big space in there. Also, another thing to remember with pressure cookers is you want to leave at least a third of space in the top of that pot for expansion, or else it's going to be coming right out the whistle top on that thing. You know, and you're going to have a mess. And I've done that a few times myself, and that is the rule to go by. Two-thirds water and whatever you're mixing in there, and a third open for expansion. Okay, so we've got our liquid back in there. Our mix is good. I'm going to put the lid back on here. Lock it down. Spin it around. Whoops. That's not correct. There we go. Make sure it's hooked. Turn that flame back on high. When it starts whistling, when that steam starts coming out, you're going to reduce that thing by about 50%. If you put it too hot, too high for too long, it burns up fast. So reduce your heat, you know, not to a simmer. You only want it about halfway down the scale there, to about a medium heat, okay? So we're going to let that go for about 20-25 minutes, and we're going to check and see what the consistency of our beans are in our mix, and see if we need to add and cook a little bit longer. Sometimes that happens, especially with large quantities of this stuff. So we've got a very small quantity. So we'll go away for now, and I'll be back in a little bit as soon as we're ready, okay? Bye. Well, we've reached the end of the journey here. All that's left is to try our recipe and see how it turned out. It's still a little steaming hot. It's only been out of the pot for just a few minutes here. I took the liberty of taking a slice of my Tuscan bread that's still fresh and moist and good. This is one of my favorite things. It's the way I do these beans. It comes out more like a stew than just beans. And it's very enjoyable with the Tuscan bread and with anything, rice, you know, whatever you want to have. It's a good side dish, or as I said, I just take a bowl of it and some fresh bread and eat it like that. One of the nice things about this is it's very freezable. You can freeze it for a month and pull it out of the freezer. Best to cook it down a little bit more and get a lot of the water out so it's nice and thick before you do that. You don't want a lot of ice forming inside of it. But after it comes out, you can put it in a saucepan with some water, heat it up, stir it up real good, mix it up to get it the consistency you want. Re-season it if you think you need to, and then eat it like that. It works very, very well. You can portion it out for meals through the week. You know, if you don't want to keep it in the fridge all the time, you can make portions and thaw them and cook them down for a meal however you want. You know, there's many things you can do with it. So let's take a little bread, dip it in the juice here, give it a try. That's very good. That's very good. You can see the consistency of it. There's still quite a bit of liquid. It could be cooked down some more, but let's just try it like this and see what the seasoning's like. That is very good. That is right on the money. Well, that brings us to the end of it. I hope I was very clear with the methodology that I used to produce this, and it's a very simple recipe. There seems like a lot of things, but it's just a steady progression of common sense things when you're cooking. Even a beginner could handle this, I think, very, very easily. So, and advanced cooking people, you know, you shouldn't have any trouble with this at all. And you can be creative. That's one of the wonderful things about cooking, is being creative and creating new things and trying them and failing sometimes, and you know, it's just all part of the process. Don't be afraid to try. You can take what I've got here. If you say, aha, I can do it like this and it'll be different, by all means try it. Try it. Try many things, okay? I'm going to have my beans and sausage and homemade Tuscan bread. It's been wonderful having you all. I hope you enjoy the video. If you have any questions or comments or suggestions, feel free to post them on my YouTube site or on my Facebook site. All the information is there, how to find me. To all my friends, I'm enjoying this. I wish you were here, okay? The only thing that's missing is that ice cold beer, which I didn't get any of today, but no problem. Have a wonderful afternoon and end of the week. I will get this edited up and on the block for you as soon as I possibly can. And I hope to hear from you soon, okay? Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.